What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Truth and Basketball with Swipa and Coach Karl. Now, Coach, it's been a little minute since we had our last chance to talk, and I'm not going to lie. When we last met the Denver Nuggets, they were in a little bit different place than they are right now. Then all of a sudden, month and a half later, they have been having some quality wins. So we got a lot to talk about. But y'all, make sure y'all subscribe to the channel so you can get more information. Make sure you follow Coach Karl on social media, on Twitter, so you can hear his thoughts about basketball. But, Coach, how's everything going? How do you feel today?
I'm glad to talk to you. In Denver, when you live in Denver and you listen to the Denver media bullshit, you kind of get tired of it. They love they love the Broncos, but they stink. And the Avalanche are having a bad year. And so the Denver Nuggets now are the glory team. And everybody's loving up to them, and I'm happy they're playing well. But, I think you said it before we started the meeting, was the NBA is messed up. The NBA is weird. The NBA is just strange. There's a lot of good change going on, and there's some change going on in the world of how we prepare for the season. All these games where, when you go on hoops right now, all you read about is who's going to play and who isn't going to play.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I don't know how you got a pulse. Everybody said, well, the Nuggets killed the Lakers. The Lakers won 5 games in a row. That basketball team won 5 games in a row. Brooklyn's won 18 out of 20 games. Are they any good? I'm not sure I'm going to bet on them. I know Boston and Philly and in Milwaukee have been up and down. But, I think right now, usually at this time of the year, we're getting a good feel for what's going to happen. For some reason, I think it's too early to go there yet. I think we got to wait for trade deadline and maybe go 10 games in after the All-Star game before we come to, some crazy conclusions. Right. But, Denver's playing well. And I want you to know, Jokic is unbelievable in how good he is right now. I think he's messing with the game. The triple-double without missing a shot, I think he's thinking about that stuff. I think in the back of his mind, he thinks he can be a leading assist guy in the NBA. I don't know if he can get to that point, but he's passing the ball really, really well. He doesn't have a lot of ego on scoring right now. And the other guys have picked up the slack and liking it. The thing they've done really, really well is they've become a good three-point shooting team and a good three-point defensive team. I remember a long time ago when I first started realizing how big and important the three-pointer was going to be. I was in Madrid, coaching Real Madrid. And I remember writing on the board, you have to defend the three, you have to shoot the three, and you have to rebound the three. And right now, Denver's doing that as good as anybody in the NBA.
Right. Yeah, on the season, Denver is ranked 12th in the NBA in defending the three-point line, only giving up a 35.5, which, again, relative to where they were at the start of the year defensively, goes to show you how much they picked up on that end of the ball. But, Coach, so my first question for you gets into some of this. So, in the last 12 games, Coach, the Denver Nuggets are 10-2. The Nuggets, they beat the Celtics with everybody in the lineup. They then beat the Grizzlies, who didn't have Desmond Bane available, but Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. didn't play. They beat the Suns. Devin Booker was there. They got hurt after 9 minutes, 4 minutes. He was a -9 in the first 4 minutes. They beat the Blazers twice. They beat the Cavs without Donovan Mitchell, #1 defensive team in the NBA. They beat the Miami Heat, and now they've beaten the Kings. And then obviously they just beat the Lakers. Not even worth mentioning. No AD, no problem. But, Coach, over the last 12 games, the Denver Nuggets have the third-ranked offense in the NBA, and they have the third-ranked defense in the NBA, and they're second in the NBA in net rating at 8.1, meaning that when they're on the court, they are basically the second-best team in the NBA throughout the last 12 games. So for you, how, if at all, impressed are you with the run they've gone on, and what do you feel like you're learning about the Denver Nuggets over the course of the last few games, or really the last month or so?
I think most of those games have been at home.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've taken advantage and they've been very focused on winning games they're supposed to win. And they haven't had that laissez-faire type of performance when they're meeting up with a team they should handle.
Right.
And, they still do crazy things, though. They go up to Minnesota and lose to a Minnesota team that played a couple guys I never heard of. In the league, as I said, Oklahoma City beating Boston by 40. What is that?
Right.
And almost every night we have a bad blowout of some sort in the NBA. The Laker game last night, was that really enjoyable to watch, or was it? It's always enjoyable to beat the Lakers. But, I think we could have beaten the Lakers last night with our second unit.
Right.
I think that would have been the better challenge, the better challenge of it. Every time the Lakers made a little comeback, all I did is put the starters back in. The thing blew back up to 15 in about 3 minutes. I like where they're at. We're about midway through the year. But, I still don't, I'm not sure of their bench. I'm not sure of their rotations all the time. They're seemingly getting healthier and more confident with Murray and Porter in the lineup.
Yep.
But I want to see more consistent habits, probably at the defensive end of the court. And maybe a little bit more, a flow game of when the bench comes in, it doesn't always go up and down.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, Coach, is that now the unlucky part of this is that Donovan Mitchell had a rest day versus the Nuggets, so he didn't play. Then obviously LeBron James had a rest day versus the Denver Nuggets. He didn't play. And then Devin Booker got hurt in the Suns game. But I think what I'm noticing from the Nuggets is that they started off the year, Coach, they were the 28th ranked defense in the NBA basically for the first 25, 27 games of the year. They weren't playing committed on that end. They were only locking in the clutch. Coach Michael Malone was constantly reiterating, well, we're the number one clutch defense in the NBA. Meaning in the last 5 minutes of the game and overtime, we're locking in. But they didn't care outside of that. But what's happened is something changed in them when they got into a position where they were like, we're finally coming home after they had played the most road games in the NBA up until this homestand. They had basically had a bunch of wear and tear, a bunch of traveling. Something happened where they made almost like an internal decision to say, we were getting embarrassed on one end of the court and we were still winning games. How good could we be if we start committing to playing defense at a high level while also continuing to be an elite level offense? And again, Coach, third in the NBA in defense over the last 12 games. They're in the last 15 games, they're the 7th ranked defense in the NBA. So for you, I think this would be really good to hear from you. When you have a team that you're trying to mold, like that Supersonics team that made it to the finals, or even other teams that you've coached, even the 2012, 2013 Denver Nuggets team, how do you get your team to buy in to committing to that end of the court? Is it constantly pushing a message? Is it maybe picking one player and telling them to lead? Like, what are some strategies? How do you even get that to happen?
Well, I think the thing that you got to realize, in my opinion, I think they're picking up Bruce Brown and Pope, and they've added another guy to go with Gordon to be defensive guys. They can on almost any given night, they can play 3 defensive players all the time on the court. Right. And Jokic has got to be a really good a decent defender.
Right.
My whole thing is, in a lot of ways, the strengths defensively of the Denver Nuggets matches up very well with the Western Conference.
Mm.
You know, the guards and the wing guys. You have three guys that can cover those guys on any given night.
Right.
And one guy usually has. I mean, right now my guy I think is Brown is really damn good, and Aaron Gordon, I think he's having a hell of a year.
Right.
And even though I don't think he's been totally a defensive stopper like he might have did a year or two ago,
right,
he's still damn good at that end of the court. So I think the defensive strengths of Denver are oriented very well
right,
to a lot of the Western Conference teams. The only position I worry about is the point guards, the little guards running around that can go anywhere they want to go. Those guys seem to still light us up a little bit.
So I think the thing is, Coach, I've watched them pretty heavily, obviously. They have been, versus the Boston Celtics, they were basically switching everything between Murray, KCP, Porter, and Gordon. They were switching everything on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They did the same thing to John Morant. They did the same thing to Darius Garland. Then Chris Paul, Devin Booker, they did the same thing. Now, the numbers are actually saying, Coach, I'm actually really curious because I have been asking this question. Why? But it's been a little difficult, I think, getting a solid answer. But, Coach, do you know that when Jamal Murray, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic are on the court, that's the third best lineup in the NBA with 200-plus minutes played? But, Coach, the thing is, defensively, they are only giving up 106.2 points per 100 possessions. That's actually a better defensive lineup than when Bruce Brown is in the game for Michael Porter Jr. So, Coach, for you, like, what do you think it is that's making the Nuggets with Michael Porter Jr. on the court in particular? Why is he helping their defense now, even at times more than what Bruce Brown is based on what the numbers? Because we have a pretty large sample size through 40 games now that the Nuggets have been better defensively with Porter in the lineup.
Well, I think he's improving. I think he's doing little things more in the game than I've ever seen. I saw little things last night.
Right.
He set some screens to get guys three-point shots. He's making harder cuts, what I call sacrifice cuts,
right,
to get other guys open. I think he's learning as a pro. His length is always impressive.
Right.
He's got to learn. He still's got to learn to keep the ball in front of him better.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that drives me a little bit crazy about the Nuggets is they give up a lot of easy layups. And some of that's because I like to see their pick and roll habits become a little better. And I know switching is going to be the way they're going to go when it counts. But I think you got to have some other philosophies in there,
right,
as the season goes on.
Coach, how would you protect Jokic? So, like, when in the pick and roll situations, especially as you get into playoffs, like, is there a way that you would want to scheme to protect Jokic, given that he's a little more slow-footed on the defensive end?
Well, right now in the NBA, it's so much more. The big guys are just in drops. They're in a zone area.
Right.
They're zoning up and letting the guard come in and maneuver in whatever way possible. I think that's going to be difficult sometimes in a playoff situation. When you get someone like LeBron or Paul who can take over a game when you're giving that to them. I think the good thing about Jokic is he's smart enough that you can play him at different ways. I would just like to see another pick and roll philosophy. Maybe a jump or maybe a hard show, rather than always rely upon switching. Even though I was one of the big advocates 20 years ago that
right,
switching is pretty cool.
Coach, actually, this is a little bit of a brain picking question. In your time coaching, who do you, of all the bigs and the centers that you ever coached, who was the best mobile defender that allows you to play that kind of a scheme to where you maybe wanted to switch a little bit more, maybe wanted to show and hedge a little bit more? Who was the best big that you coached that was able to do that well?
That's pretty easy. I think Kenyon Martin was the guy that we always relied upon to do that.
Right.
I mean, we wouldn't put Kenyon on LeBron all the time, but at the end of the game, Kenyon was our go-to stopper. And then in the pick and roll situation, the same thing. We tried to put Kenyon in the pick and roll to where if it was showing or hedging, he did it really well. He did it really intelligently. But then he also could switch on to anybody really, really well.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's actually a really underrated part of Kenyon's game. I remember watching him even versus Kobe in the playoff series, like the way he would sit down defensively and able to focus and really able to track where the ball handler was going, paying attention to a lot of weak side help opportunities. Again, I think Kenyon was such a phenomenal dunker, and because he operates so in a dunker spot, and that little mid-range shot he had was so good as well, I do think that's one of the slept-on parts of the value. So when you had Marcus Camby, Kenyon Martin, Carmelo, Chauncey, and then, you would have the rest of the roster, Dante Jones. Like, it really gave you a lot of opportunities to excel defensively as well. I actually think that's a really good point.
And people don't realize that Nene was a really good big
Nene too.
Mm-hmm. Marcus was the one guy that probably didn't switch as well. But when you had Nene and Kenyon, you could switch almost anything.
Right. Right. So, Coach, we talked a little bit beforehand, but I really want to get your thoughts here because you said years ago, and you said to me recently that you think that Nikola Jokic, you could envision him being a top 10 player ever that's ever played the game of basketball when his career is over and set. And right now, Coach, so just to give you some perspective, Jokic is seemingly like on a tear that we haven't maybe necessarily seen before. On the season, Jokic is averaging 25 points a game, 10.8 rebounds a game, 9.7 assists per game, 1.4 steals per game. He's shooting 66% from the 2-point range, 37% from three. He has a true shooting of 69.1, which is by far the best shooting season of somebody averaging over 20 points ever in the history of the sport. He's a plus 315, meaning when he's on the court, the Denver Nuggets have won those minutes by 315 points. It leads the NBA. Coach, how do you put in perspective how great Jokic is playing right now?
Nobody in basketball is even close. I mean, they want to talk about Doncic and they want to talk about Embiid. This guy is taking a good basketball team and elevating it to a contender. The last 2 years, he took an average basketball team and made it good and got the MVP. Now his team's going to finish probably in the top 2 or 3 records in the NBA. And we don't even talk about him. And what he does more than anything, I mean, I don't know how to say this, but he's the coach on the court. He directs the game. He organizes his teammates. He plays a point guard mentality at the center position. And then his efficiency, as you said, is unbelievable. I mean, I thought that when Donovan Mitchell had 71, on 32 shots, that was unbelievable. That was really an efficient game.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, Jokic gives us that type of game almost every night. Mm-hmm. I mean, it might not be 71, but he'll go 30 and 20 and 10. And the efficiency of that game is incredible. He makes other guys better. He makes his teammates play the right way. He's demanding in a very loving, caring former he is right now.
So, Coach, since he came back from COVID protocols, he's averaging 27, 11, and 10, and he's shooting 66% from 2, 42% from 3, 80% from the line, and the Nuggets are 17 and 7. in their last 24 games. So since he came back from COVID, he's averaging a triple-double. And again, has a 70% true shooting. So I think, Coach, I'm really curious about this. There still seems to be a lot of pushback. Like when you say Jokic is the best player in the NBA, a lot of people, they immediately point to Giannis, or they'll point to whoever, or even LeBron at times, or Durant, or whatever else it might be. There seems to still be a very real resistance to Jokic being the best player in basketball. Do you have any insight, like, why that might be? Is it because, like, how he looks, his play style? Is it the defensive deficiencies that people have in their mind? What do you think that might be?
Well, I think it makes the game simple. It makes the game easy. And he doesn't have a lot of flash. You know, Embiid has flash. Giannis has, he has highlight films. Luka is the other guy that doesn't have a lot of flash, but he has bigger numbers and he has more ball dominant. I mean, I can't explain why the NBA doesn't want to give him the spotlight, other than he's like Tim Duncan. He's boring a little bit. He makes the game is easy. He makes the game easy for other guys. There's so many things about what he does that is like he's the coach. He's coaching his team as he plays the game. He's pretty amazing.
Do you think that he had the chance to win a third MVP in a row?
If he sustains these numbers, and if somehow he averages a triple-double, I don't know how you can not give it to him again, especially if Denver's one of the top 4 teams in the NBA. Because Embiid's not going to get there. Milwaukee, I know we got to wait until Middleton gets back before we judge them.
Right.
But they seem to be a little stale.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've had, as much as Boston had a bad game, Milwaukee has had a lot of 20-point deficits.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe it's just 3 years of fighting for the championship. It wears you out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And now, we have a lot of distractions. Not distractions is not a good word, but we have so many guys scoring a lot of numbers. I think I read the other day that there's almost 140-point games.
Yeah.
Already in the NBA this year. So we get distracted. And Jokic isn't putting up 40. Now, if I had one guy that you wanted to go get 40, I bet on Jokic.
Hmm.
But that's not what he's trying to do. He's trying to make his team play as well as they can play together. And he really believes that the team is bigger and more powerful than the individual. And there's a little bit of an epidemic going on in the NBA that, we're going to let these guys try to get 40 every night.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that's the way to win a championship. It might be a way to win games, but the whole thing, it's the best team that wins the NBA championship.
Right.
And somehow someone in Denver, Malone or whoever, has convinced Jokic that if we have the best team, we're going to win the championship. And I think right now, I've always loved guys like Magic and LeBron and Michael and guys like me who made other guys better. There's no one in basketball making players better than Jokic. Nobody. Not LeBron, not any point guard, not Chris Paul. Nobody makes his team play as well as Jokic makes the Denver Nuggets play.
Right. Yeah, and the funny thing is, Coach, that, the numbers would all back you up in that, whether they just be when the Nuggets are on the court, they're playing like the best team in the NBA. You can say off, all the other stuff. But, yeah, and I think I agree, obviously. When I think of Jokic, the level of control he has on the game, I wasn't around to watch a lot of Magic, but I've watched a lot of Magic in highlights, and I know I watched a lot of his games, so I know what he did. But outside of Magic, outside of LeBron, especially during those Miami Heat days or those 2014-15 Cleveland Cavaliers days, I just haven't seen a player that is able to control the pace of a game or able to control what happens on a possession-by-possession basis like Jokic. He is just an upper echelon playmaker. He's one of the greatest minds that has ever existed on an NBA court. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think he makes them from a good team to a contending team.
That's right. But the whole thing I want to express now is I've watched Jokic for 6 or 7 years now.
Right.
I don't know how to cover him. I do not know how I would play him if I played him tomorrow. As with Giannis, I think I know the game plan on, I think you got to keep Giannis away from the rim. You don't want to foul him. He kind of goes back to the superstar. No threes, no free throws, no layups. But Embiid, Embiid is too jump shot oriented for me. He doesn't do the dirty work enough. He doesn't do the grind and the grit stuff. And Doncic, I just don't like how he plays. He plays too much like James Harden did, 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. He's ball dominant. I love his skills. He's a little bit like Jokic. He's very simple. He's not flashy, but he's very good. I don't know. Kevin Durant is having a good run. I like how Kevin Durant is learning to be more efficient, more effective as a playmaker. I think he is a guy that I think is learning how, in the latter stages of his career, he's kind of growing into that, kind of being a professor of the game of basketball rather than a tremendous talent of the game. But as I said, the thing I like Jokic and all, I would not be afraid of Embiid if I could play him. But Jokic, I've been watching a lot. And, I get phone calls every week on guys, how would you play him? And, I really don't have that answer other than don't give him easy baskets. Try to keep him away from the rim. And, maybe I'm a little bit of a believer, play small on him, which makes Malone go to the post up a little bit more. I don't think that's not what they want to play like. They want to play fast. They want to play up and down. Mm-hmm. So I might go small to make them play a slower pace game.
Did you have a similar feeling about like Jordan and LeBron when you were coaching against them?
Jordan, no question. The 2 guys, the hardest guys I've ever tried to cover is Shaq and Jordan.
Yeah, 2000 to 2003, Shaquille O'Neal.
Michael, in today's game, Michael would have made 40 points easy. It's too easy now where the ball can go anywhere it wants to go. People don't understand Michael early in his career was quick as hell and could blow by you. And then Shaq was just so damn big. People don't understand how big that man was. And I had a lot of big guys. I had Irvin Johnson. I had Sam Perkins. I had Frank Rakowski. I had a lot of guys in Seattle to throw at Shaq, but they all look little. And Shaq was the one guy that if you held him to 25 and 20, you were kind of happy. You're happy. Okay, we got out without getting killed. But right now with Jokic, I've spoken to a lot of coaches here. I think if Jokic wanted to go out and get 50, he could go get 50. Yeah, but, he doesn't have that mentality. He wants to win, and he wants everybody to enjoy the game. And it's a blessing. It's a blessing to have here in Denver.
Love that. Coach, can you maybe transition into another player that's kind of taken a serious leap this year, Aaron Gordon? How have you felt watching him this year? And Jamal's been coming back, and then MPJ had a heel injury, so he was out for a while. Aaron Gordon has ostensibly been their second best player. Have you been impressed with the way he's played this year?
I love him. Kind of, in my mind, I always like guys that I call were no-nonsense guys. They didn't need a lot of love. They didn't need a lot of attention. But they knew who they were. They knew what they could get done. He's upgraded his perimeter game. He's really good on the outside, but he's now one of the best cutters in basketball. And then his three-point shooting I'm amazed at it. It's pretty damn good. I mean, I still go when he shoots that quick three.
Right. I'm
kind of thinking that's not a good shot, but he's kind of convincing me that it is a good shot. And as I said earlier in the program, that right now the NBA, so much of success is on the three ball, how you shoot it, how you defend it, and a little bit on how you rebound it. And Aaron Gordon, in my mind, in a lot of ways similar to Jokic, he has built a bigger, stronger foundation for the Denver Nuggets, both at the offensive end of the court, because Gordon's fundamentally sound.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to be like Bones or like maybe Jamal, and shot selection can get goofy a little bit. Aaron Gordon every once in a while he takes a bad shot, but he's really efficient, really effective. He understands down the stretch what's important.
Right.
Stops and extra possessions and offensive rebounding. And I don't know, he's really come into a kind of a quiet guy. I don't know if he's quiet or not, but I like his no-nonsense approach to the game more than I've ever. And I think he's done a great job.
Do you see him similar to how on those really, really good teams that you had, Sean Kemp with the Sonics, and then Kenyon Martin with those 09 Melo-led, Chauncey Billups-led Nuggets team? Do you see him kind of in the same approximation as those type of players?
I would compare him a little bit more to Kenyon, because when I saw Gordon play in college, I thought he was a hell of a defender.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think he is. But Kenyon never got to be a good offensive player. He got to be a pretty good offensive player, but never got to be a consistently good offensive player. Mm-hmm. Eric Gordon this year is a good offensive basketball player, along with what he gives you on his intangibles of defense and rebounding.
Right. Well, Coach, this kind of gets to it. You got KCP, you got Bruce, you got Porter, you got Gordon. Jamal had 34 points last night. He's averaging about 20 over the last 10 or 12 games. He's averaging 6 assists as well. He's getting better as a playmaker. You got Bones Highland. You got Blocko Chanchar. You got Jeff Green. You got some players, Coach. For you, at 27-13, top of the Western Conference, beating a lot of quality teams, do you think, with what you've seen so far, that the Denver Nuggets are looking like a championship-level team so far this season?
Well, if you're comparing and what's going on in the NBA, I definitely think they're in the top 5. But I think they got to earn it.
Right.
I know you don't want to buy into the bubble was not playoff basketball. And the whole thing comes down to is I always feel, maybe not in the first round, but the second and third rounds of the playoffs is where people grow up. They realize how hard it is to do what winning an NBA championship is. So I think I look forward to about mid-May when we get by the first round and we got all the pretenders are gone, and then we have 8 teams left, and that's when I think the Nuggets going to have to show up and prove it and earn it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not betting against them.
Right.
Right now, I'd probably bet if we started playoffs tomorrow, I'd probably bet on a little bit. But it's a long season. Still got trade deadline. We probably have at least one or maybe two injuries. They're going to be a factor in the series in the rest of the season. And we got a lot of young guys trying to get that spotlight. John Moran. We got a lot of guys. Jason Tatum. There are a lot of guys trying to get that title. Because the guy that gets the next title that doesn't have one now is the guy that's going to elevate themselves into a better place.
Mm. Well, how do you feel with all that happened and the transitions and everything? Coach Michael Malone obviously is at the helm as the head coach, and he's been obviously with the team for 8 seasons now. How do you feel he has done this year in terms of just how do you feel about his rotations, his mindset, the culture that he set, the run they've been on? How would you evaluate how Coach Michael Malone has been so far this year?
I think he's doing a good job. I think I liked him earlier in the year because of the schedule being tough. I thought he got him ready for the schedule. And I think they're going to reap some rewards in the future because the schedule doesn't get harder. I mean, right now they're in a time of year that I think they'll be ready for the last 20 games of the season. It's hard because I'll be honest with you. I think Jokic coaches the team. I mean, I watch him play, and he reminds me so much of Tim Duncan and a little bit of David Robinson in San Antonio. I mean, Pop's a hell of a coach, but having those two guys on the court, they didn't make mistakes. And so, I mean, it's a blessing for Mike Malone that he gets to coach this gentleman because this guy is, I said top 10, I might be moving that to, he might be a top 5 player someday. and he's doing it.
Right.
When no big man does it.
Right.
He's doing it in the world of little guys.
Woo.
Big guy is playing little man basketball.
Coach Karl, that's a take because when I think of top 5 players in NBA history, I've got Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, and then after that, for me, probably like Bill Russell. Then you're getting into like Tim Duncan, Kobe, Steph Curry, Hakeem Olajuwon, Larry Bird. So you think that, based on what you're seeing, you think that there's a level where he could get to where that Magic Johnson, Bill Russell, Tim Duncan tier is about where he could end up?
Well, the only way he's going to get there is win championships.
Rings, right, exactly.
And that's the one thing right now that the statement I made, if he had 2 championships, would not be obnoxious.
Right.
I'm not making it without championships. It's a little obnoxious.
Right. No, I love it. I love it because, I think Steph Curry, for a lot of people, I think there were people that were hesitant to put him in a top 10 to 7 conversation until he won that 4th ring. I think there's something about that solidifies it for you. And then obviously doing it twice without Kevin Durant as well really, really helped him. So look, I think it's within reason. Here's the thing about me, Coach. LeBron earned the title of being a top 2 player all time. 4-time MVP, 10 finals, basically 8 straight finals, dominated the Eastern Conference, went into a playoff series, averaged like 35, 10, and 11 as a one-man wrecking show with Matthew Dellavedova as his number 2 option. And then versus the Golden State Warriors. He had a 51-8-8 game in 2017-18 versus the Warriors for Kevin Durant. Basically, took the game to overtime. Then J.R. Smith obviously had that meltdown at the end of the game. LeBron has just absolutely dominated. And he's 38 years old and he's still dominating. So he is like solidified. Tim Duncan, 5 rings, 5 of them. one of the greatest defensive players ever, MVP level player, anchored all the way until he was in his late 30s, basically anchored a top 5 defense with the San Antonio Spurs, solidified. I think Michael is Michael. Magic is magic. He basically, without him, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had 1 championship. So, look, you're right. I think you have to win championships to get there. But I don't think here if you're a player and you're up to winning a 3rd straight MVP for the first time since Larry Bird, coach, I think that says something about you.
Well, being one of those guys that never won a championship, I hope he gets his glory. But we have a little bit of a way in. I mean, if he's going to be compared to that top 5,
right?
I'm just saying, big guys. I put Shaq and Kareem, and Tim Duncan were my guys. I love Karl Malone. I love Kevin McHale. I mean, there are a lot of great big guys that don't get enough love. But probably Jokic is not going to get a lot of love until he wins his championship.
Right.
And because Michael and Kobe and LeBron have big numbers in that area. And I hope he gets it. I mean, it would be great in Denver after last year, the Avalanche winning.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, Denver has a chance. But as I said, as we talked earlier about how the NBA is a little chaotic.
Right.
I think it's going to settle down before we realize. But I kind of have what I've noticed, what I said about, I don't know if the organization had an idea that they wanted to go get Brown and Caldwell Pope and draft another defender in the Brown kid from Kansas.
Yeah.
Because in the old days, the Boston Celtics drafted guys to beat the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers drafted Andrew Toney to go against Dennis Johnson. Maybe they were thinking about, hey, I got to beat LeBron. I got to beat Doncic. I got to cover the perimeter. There's no one in the world better than Jokic. So why do we got to worry about big men? We got to worry about how to defend on the floor. Right. And that's kind of coming out a little bit in our personality right now.
What are your thoughts on Christian Brown so far as a rookie through 40 games?
You don't want me to go there.
I want to hear it.
I think it's really good. I wish he had more minutes, but I don't see how you give him more minutes. You got too many guys right now that are maybe not better, but right now more experienced, and taking a chance unless you really know he's going to be really good, I think is how they're handling is probably the right way. Mm. He's a great insurance policy. Someone gets hurt, you got this guy, you're going to be fine.
Coach, he's a 6'6" 2 guard who can defend basically 1 through 3. Now, he can play 3 as well, but I think a lot of his minutes with the starters have been as a 2. But, yeah, and then when they played against Ja Morant, he started, and they held the Memphis Grizzlies to 91 points that game. And one of the reasons was because Christian Brown was hounding him with the ball on every possession. And so he's been great off ball, too. So I've been really impressed by him.
Christian Brown doesn't show a lot of fear. He's a tough-minded dude. I love him.
Mm-hmm. So, Coach, last question for today. Is there anybody around the NBA that has impressed you? I know before the season we talked about the Grizzlies, the Clippers, and obviously you got your Bucks and all that. Is there a team or even a player that you're most impressed with so far?
The one player I'm scared to death of, I hate to say this, cannot believe I'm going to say this, is Zion Williamson. If that guy stays healthy, I can't wait to see him play playoff basketball. Mm. Because I don't know how to stop him either. Mm. I mean, he is so quick, so powerful, so big. And I think they've done a great job of putting the ball in his hands and making him a point forward. I think that's a great way to make him play. allow him to play. And because then he doesn't have, he can see where the double teams are coming from.
Right.
And he's not a bad passer. He's not a good passer yet, but he's moving in that direction.
Mm-hmm. The comp for him has been Charles Barkley. Would you like say that's his best comp that you've seen historically? Larry Johnson, Sean Kemp, Charles Barkley.
I think he's more in the Sean Kemp area. Charles was, I don't know if Charles could be as dominating in today's game as Zion, I think, can be. I mean, Charles is a lot smaller. I mean, Zion, I don't know how big he is, but he's big enough. That's all I know.
About 6'7", 6'6.5".
Well, Charles is about 6'4".
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Coach, I'm actually really excited. I think that was really great insight on the Nuggets. I think you're right to have some hesitations with you need to prove it. I think that what you said about Jokic is profound. I think what your analysis of the NBA as a whole was great. And I think, again, the Zion Williamson-led Pelicans, they are a serious bunch. Zion, Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, C.J. McCollum, Trey Murphy, Dyson Daniels, just guys.
Trey Murphy, where the hell did he come from?
I don't know. He's a high-flying, great sniper shooter as well. I have no idea.
I mean, that guy, I'm going, whoa, who's that guy?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to tell you another team that I'm impressed with, Oklahoma City.
Okay, you like what they're doing with Shea Gilgeous and Josh Giddey and the rest of them?
Well, I don't know how they win, but they've beaten a lot of good basketball teams.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly on their court.
Right.
Mostly in Oklahoma City. But, I mean, they're not a playoff team, but I'm going to be, if they can sustain their growth right now, I think they're going to be very difficult to beat at the end of the year.
Well, and the last question I have for you for a rookie coach, Paolo Banchero, do you like his game? Do you get a vibe with him at all, the kind of player he is? He kind of has a little mellow in him to a little degree. He has a much better defensive ceiling, though, but do you have overall insights? How do you feel about Paolo so far?
Again, I don't like organizations that give. I would wish he would earn more of what he has. They're giving him stardom. They're giving him touches. They're giving him shots. And he's played really well.
Right.
But I like the process to be that you earn it a little bit more. And I don't know. I definitely think he's the rookie of the year. I think he's great. I think he's had many, many play basketball to win the game more than to play basketball for stats.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes he looks like he's playing for stats. And
you think that's because he's still young, just learning basketball as a whole?
Yeah. I mean, his shot selection is going downhill right now. Can you get it back to really better? But in the same sense, Orlando's probably doing the right thing. They think they have a superstar. And how do we get him to get to be a superstar? Is give him the opportunity. As coaches, we like that opportunity to be earned a little bit more. But that's the hypocrisy we live in today.
Is that kind of how you felt because you got the mellow when he had a few years in the bag. Do you feel like had you had him a little sooner, then you would have been able to work on some of that stuff early with him?
Well, I think Melo, if he came in today's game, back when Melo came in the NBA, triple doubles weren't cool. Guess what? Triple doubles today are cool.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, Coach, I'm excited. I'm really excited to talk to you again as we're just kind of diving into this season because we're about at the midway point. The Nuggets are 27-13. They got another game versus Phoenix on Wednesday. Then they'll be 41 games in. So maybe they're 28-13 or 27-14 which based on what they did the year before is way better, much better improvement. So we got a lot to get into, Coach. So I appreciate the time. I appreciate the insight. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Follow Coach Karl, because you might get some Bronco takes in the middle of that stuff as well, because Coach was definitely commenting on the whole Nathaniel Hackett, Russell Wilson situation as well. So it's been a lot of fun, Coach.
Well, let's keep the ball rolling and go Nuggets. Thank you,
y'all. Hit that subscribe button. We are going up. This is one of the best basketball shows you could watch on the net. Make sure y'all subscribe, y'all. We will see y'all again soon. We out.